John Steinbeck, great American writer, was born in 1902. He was born and raised in the central coast of California, which really influenced his writing. He was recognized during his lifetime for his writing with multiple prizes, and he's still considered a great American writer. Almost all Americans have read at least one of his books. Let's look at the place where Steinbeck was born and raised, which influenced his own writing and his setting so much. This is the Salinas Valley. It is agricultural. There are hills. It's close to the ocean, and this fog rolls in. So these valleys are often filled with fog. Cannery Row on the Monterey Bay is where they would catch fish and put them in cans. It's still considered a tourist spot. It inspired his first successful novel in the early 30s. His philosophy of fiction, I think, is well summarized by this entry in his personal journal. He says, "In every bit of honest writing in the world, there is a base theme. Try to understand men. If you understand each other, you will be kind to each other. Knowing a man well never leads to hate, and nearly always leads to love. There is writing promoting social change, writing punishing injustice, writing in celebration of heroism, but always that base theme. Try to understand each other." Steinbeck, during the peak years of his career, he wrote many books, several short stories. His books became movies, and he picked up many prizes, not only in the United States, but also throughout the world. In the 60s, he also won the Nobel Prize for Literature. But these peak years of his career, 1930s to the 1940s, what was happening in America and in the world? Well, in this newspaper article at that time, you can see this interesting headline. "America was proud of its front porch until John Steinbeck showed the backyard." He criticized American society, and at that time there was a lot to criticize. He says this in one of his books, Travel with Charlie: "I find out of long experience that I admire all nations and hate all governments." In the novel East of Eden, he wrote this: "And this I believe, that the free exploring mind of the individual human is the most valuable thing in the world. And this I would fight for, the freedom of the mind to take any direction it wishes, undirected. And this I must fight against, any idea, religion, or government which limits or destroys the individual. This is what I am and what I am about." Those are words he wrote in a novel, but I think they summarize his own beliefs. In the novel The Grapes of Wrath, one of his characters says, "If you're in trouble or hurt or need, go to the poor people. They're the only ones that'll help. The only ones." He had a lot of respect for common people. And at this time in America, common people were suffering. The Great Depression had hit America. Let's see how these events in history influenced and interacted with his life. 1929, the Depression began. Steinbeck was already writing. 1930s, nicknamed the Dirty 30s, the Dust Bowl had developed and was worsening, impacting the entire country. And this is the time when Steinbeck is recognized as a successful writer. In the mid-30s, he wrote this short story, The Chrysanthemums. It's published in 1937. And he also, during that time, published a series of articles about the homeless. Why were there so many homeless people at that time? Well, it was a combination of two major events. One is the Great Depression. Now, some of the images of this time all of these men are there for a free breakfast. People lined up, free coffee and donuts for the unemployed. $100 will buy this car. I must have cash. Lost all on the stock market, and this man asks for a job. But this generosity, this charity, did not last forever. At some point, as the Great Depression got worse, and as the Dust Bowl got worse, the free lunches, the free coffee stopped. Now, I've mentioned the Dust Bowl. You might not know what it is. It was a combination of bad weather and bad farming practices that led to these dust clouds, which went through the agricultural center of the United States. They destroyed farms, they destroyed towns, and the dust was so thick it entirely wiped out farms and killed hundreds, perhaps thousands of people, leaving them homeless, and they had to walk to try to find a new way of life, having lost everything. Thousands of people were living in their cars, living in tents, homeless, and many of them went to California. The setting of the chrysanthemums is a healthy farm in California, not far from the coast, but the world all around that farm was full of change and fear, thousands of people desperate for a little food, a little money, a job. Now, remember this picture. This is the fog coming in from the ocean and filling the valleys, touching the hills of the farms of Central California. Below that fog in the farmlands, you couldn't see sunlight for many hours of the day. And in this dark, a flower like a chrysanthemum could be a symbol of beauty, light, hope. Steinbeck did not write many short stories. He wrote just a few. The Chrysanthemums is one of the most famous. It is a mysterious short story. The setting is important. Remember the look of these beautiful farms and also this thick fog. But also remember that symbolism in the short story is especially important. Thanks for listening. I hope this helps you understand the short story.